YouTube, how's it going? And welcome back to Kitchen Table Meta. This week on Top 5 Tuesday, we're going to talk about the top 5 battle cards for set 1. And it's something I really want to do. I felt like in my last couple videos, I've talked a lot about really good extra cards in set 1 that you need to get. But I really want to talk about, in this video, the top 5 battle cards that you need to get moving into set 2. Now remember, this is only a top 5 list, and there are many, many more battle cards that are very good. And again, this is just my opinion. So if I get something wrong, if you think something should have been on the list that I didn't say, let me know in the comments section below so I can know. All right, guys, we'll check this out, and then we'll see what number 5 is.
Coming at you with number 5.
Alright, so at number 5, we have Bewitching God Vados. Now, Bewitching God Vados is a very, very powerful battle card. She costs 5, she has 20,000 power, she has dual attack, and she has this really cool ability that when you attack, you have to look at, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose an alien, reveal an alien, and then play it for free. The alien has to have 15,000 or less power, which most of them do, so it's not that big of a downside. But this is a very, very powerful effect that can really take over the game. She's very strong on herself, too. Just a 20,000 attacker is just pretty strong for 5 anyway. Now, it's a little bit below curve. Most of our big 5 cost cards we see have 20,000 attack, but, you know, obviously her ability makes up for this extremely well. Also, something to remember, and something I love doing with her, is I like using Sensu Beam with her a lot. I like, you know, using Sensu Beam, making her a 25,000 attacker, and then it really makes it hard for your opponent to stop her attacks, and then you're still flooding the board with tons of stuff. Now, the reason why she's only at number 5, because I think she does do a very good job of taking over the game very quickly, is because in set 2, we didn't really see any other aliens for her to take advantage of. Now, again, this isn't a huge downside because the current aliens she has are very strong. She has the Frost evolutions, which all of them have double strike, which is super strong. She has hit that she can get, which is super strong because you can, you know, get hit and then next turn use lightning fast hit to do 2 more damage, which is an amazing play. So she, you know, already has a lot of targets. Now, something to remember is the promo hit that got spoiled does work with this, and that's very important because I feel like what this deck was really lacking was a really good finisher. And while Vados makes up for it, she is, you know, she can't be stopped, right? She's weak to Cold Bloodlust, she's weak to Crusher Ball, and she can be killed. But what's really cool is that, you know, with the new hit evolutions that we're getting, or not evolutions, but I guess hit targets that we get, it's really going to allow this deck to have another way to finish the game, you know, after Vados gets a couple attacks in, which is, you know, extremely good. So again, love Vados. The reason why she's at number 5 is because I feel like she didn't get a lot of love in this set, but she's still very strong, can easily take over a game, and in my opinion is the most powerful red card that we currently have in set 1.
Let's take a look at number 4.
All right, so number 4, we have Mecha Frieza, the Returning Terror. Now, this, like, honestly, after watching Super as much as I have, you know, Frieza is slowly becoming one of my favorite characters. And I just love Frieza. I think he's a very deep character. He's almost like the Joker of the Dragon Ball world, I guess. And so I just love him so much. And this card is kind of, you know, honestly, I think the first card when I started playing that I was like, man, this card is extremely strong. And it's, in my opinion, it just really fits the Frieza theme. You know, I think Frieza is supposed to be this, you know, powerful card that comes into play and, you know, destroys stuff and just is a very imposing threat, and that is what Mecha Frieza does. Now, what Mecha Frieza is a 4-cost, 2 yellow, 15,000 attacker with dual attack, and then whenever you play him, you can discard a card. If you do, you can kill 2 of your opponent's rested battle cards, and then on the first turn, he gets double strike, and this is a very, very strong ability. Now, he is a little off curve, which is why I'm kind of putting him at 4. So he, you know, the 4 curve is what I call is 4 cost, 20,000 with double strike. He is 5,000 under that, but he does have again a very powerful ability to make up for that, which is killing 2 dudes, which is you know, extremely powerful. Now, one of the other reasons why I put him at number 4 instead of a little bit higher up in the list is he does lose his double strike after the first turn, and so after the first turn, he can kind of be a little lackluster as a threat. I mean, dual attack is still a very strong ability, but it does feel like a lot of the times, you know, you play him out, you kill 2 of their guys, the first turn, people are like, holy crap, it's Frieza. They're using all their cards, trying not to die, and after that, he just kind of sits there and puts a little bit of pressure on your opponent, which is still good. You know, I don't want to like downplay it. It's still a very powerful ability. I just think it's not as good as some of the other cards that we're going to be talking about. But something else I want to talk about really briefly is I actually had a discussion yesterday with one of my buddies. We were coming back from the airport, and me and him were talking about it, and he said something that really made me think about Mecha Frieza. And we were talking about, kind of this list and what we thought the most powerful battle cards were. And I was like, man, I don't think Mecha Frieza is that good. I mean, you can just play around Mecha Frieza, right? You just don't attack with 2 of your dudes. And then, like, he said something that I really thought about, and he's like, sure, like, you can play around it. That's true. But if you don't play around it, then that means that essentially just having Mecha Frieza in your deck is stopping one of his threats from attacking every turn. And I was like, I think about that. Like, that's actually a pretty big deal. Like, if you imagine that your opponent has like 2 big threats in the field, and they just choose to only attack you with 1 every turn because they're afraid to get blown out by Mecha Frieza, like, that's pretty powerful presence. And I think that should be taken into consideration when examining this card. Just the threat of Mecha Frieza can sometimes give you as much value as just literally playing Mecha Frieza. And so I think that's something to really think about. While you can play around this card, and I advise to do so whenever possible, I think it's something to remember that sometimes it's better just to bite the bullet and attack with your guys, because, sometimes if you wait too long, you're just giving them a chance to draw Mecha Frieza. You're just giving them a chance to essentially blow you out with it. So something to remember, something to think about. Anyway, Mecha Frieza is an amazing card. Love this card. Think that if you want a very strong yellow card moving into set 2, definitely pick this card up because he is amazing.
Moving on to number 3.
All right, so number 3, we have Broly, the Rampaging Whore. Now, I love this card, and it's no surprise to anybody that's been watching my videos. I love Hand Destruction. It's my favorite deck. When I built it for Gen Con, I was just so excited to see this discard effect kind of work and, kind of evolve it from start to finish. And this has been a pivotal part of that deck. Essentially, Broly is a 4 green, 6 cost battle card that has 30,000 attack, double strike, and then when you play the card, your opponent has to discard 2 cards at random. Now, it can also evolve for 5, 4 green and 1 on top of a Broly, which is very important. But, I'm going to talk a lot about this discard ability, because this is what makes this card extremely powerful in my mind. And so, essentially, what this card does is all the other discard effects we have in the game, your opponent chooses the cards they discard. Now, it's still a strong ability to discard cards, especially in this game. I talked a lot about it in my last video about how, hand advantage or card advantage is king. And it's the same thing with this, right? Anytime you can attack your opponent's hand, it's extremely, extremely powerful. Now, what Broly does that makes him, I think, a little over the top, and honestly, he's just going to be a very powerful finisher in decks to come, until he's no longer in the game if they choose to do a rotation, is, he discards 2 at random. And why this is important is because sometimes you can take extremely important cards out of your opponent's hands. It's happened multiple times with me where I've played out Broly the Rampaging Whore, and I'll get, like, their counter card, or I'll get their Sensu Bean, or I'll get their threat they were going to play next turn. Like, I'll play it out and get, like, their Vados, or get their 6-drop Broly. And it's very powerful, and it can really just change the momentum of the game. Sometimes you're down, and you're like, man, if they have a counter, I'm dead. I'll play Broly out. Oh, I got their counter. I'll attack. Oh, they don't have a counter. Cool, I win. And it sounds like a pretty, I guess, magical Christmas land type of scenario, but it happens way more than what you would expect it to. And again, because especially when you play the Hand Destruction deck, a lot of times you get them down to very little cards in their hand anyway, and so you have a very high chance of hitting big threats out of their hand, or essentially their most valuable cards, right? Because when you're discarding, you're always keeping those cards. You're like, I want to keep these cards. So if you hit with this discard, a lot of times you have sometimes a 50% chance to get a card that will make you win the game or put you very far ahead. Now, to make up, also on top of that, he can evolve for 5, which is insane. If you can pull this off, a lot of the times it's very strong. But, even just playing him on 6 is very good. He's also a 30,000 attacker, which is a huge power spike. It makes it very hard for your opponent to stop. They have to essentially, anything over 25,000 or more, I think is a very solid attacker to finish the game, because it puts your opponent in situations where they can use the 0-cost combo card, but they still have to combo again to not die, which is, essentially the situation you want to put your opponent in. And so, yeah, he's a solid attacker, has an amazing effect, and there's really nothing else I can say about Broly. I think this is a very strong card that will honestly be a threat to, be one of the best threats in green as long as he's in the game. So I hope you guys like him. Check him out.
Number 2 coming at ya.
Okay, at number 2, I have one of my favorite cards. For sure my favorite character in the Super. I love him so much. He's right back here, and that is Energy Boost Beerus. Now, this is a card that I had so much, it was so hard for me to decide where to put him on this list. I do think he's for sure one of the best cards in the game. He's very, I'm not gonna say oppressive, but he has a very strong ability that honestly will be kind of abused. I hate to use the word abused, but it'll definitely be taken advantage of multiple times throughout our game's lifespan. And this, what he does is he's a 4-cost, 2 blue, 20,000 attacker with double strike. So he hits that curve. But if you have 5 or more energy in play, when he comes into play, you can KO another card, another battle card. Now, this is extremely powerful ability because it allows Beerus to always get value when you play him. And so, you know, the downside is you have to wait one more turn. You have to wait until you have 5 energy. But with all the ramp that blue has, it's not that hard to get him out at 4. Now, why this card is a little bit over the top for me and why I decided to put him at number 2 is because he's almost like the Doomblade card of our game. Essentially, it's like, you know, you play out a big threat, and if you don't have Cold Bloodlust in your hand to stop this effect from happening, then you always have that threat always has an ability to die. And so he always puts you in a weird situation. And I always call it the Beerus dilemma. And that is, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I have my 30,000 Broly. If I attack with him, right, then my opponent might be able to play out a card and kill him next turn. Or should I attack or should I not? Maybe he has Mecha Frieza. This is a situation that props up a lot with the Ginyu deck, where you're like, maybe he'll have Mecha Frieza, so I won't attack with my guy. I'll pass turn. You know, your go. And then they're like, cool. Beerus, kill your dude, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I should have attacked. But then if you do attack, like you do open yourself up to Mecha Frieza or counterattacks or, you know, other cards that can kill him. And so, you know, it feels like, you know, you lose if you do it and you lose if you don't. So it's like, you know, it's a no-win situation. Beerus puts you in this situation quite often. Now, something else that Beerus can do is he can also have essentially a pseudo Mecha Frieza ability where he'll come out into play. He'll kill one of your guys, and then he'll attack into another one of your guys and kill them too. And so he can easily kill, you know, 2 people when he comes into play. He's also just a big threat throughout the game. A 20,000 attacker, you know, for 4 is nothing to laugh at. And so again, he's just solid all the way around. I feel like he's easily splashable with 2 blue. He's just a very strong threat that honestly you just can't play around. You know, he's going to kill a guy when he comes into play, and you just have to, you know, kind of, I guess, understand that and just play around that as best as you can. So again, I think he's going to be a very oppressive threat going forward. He's going to be that thing that essentially control decks, you know, are going to use to make sure they get card advantage from you. Now, the only reason I think I didn't put him at number 1 is because of the new indestructible cards that are coming out. I think that these are going to really throw a wrench into Beerus's plan and make it a little bit more difficult for him to get card advantage as soon as he comes into play, which I think is a good thing. I think that's good. I think that control needs some sort of check, so they can't just get, you know, unlimited card advantage off cards like Beerus and Vegeta and Mecha Frieza and stuff like that. So anyway, without going on too much, I love Beerus. He's my boy, and he's number 2 on our list.
Finally, number 1.
All right, finally at number 1, we have the one, the only Super Saiyan Gotenks. Now, for anyone that's played the game super competitively recently, this shouldn't be very much of a surprise. Now, Super Saiyan Gotenks is an unbelievable battle card that is cost 5, it's 2 green, 25,000 attacker with double strike, and 2 very powerful abilities. Now, the first ability just lets you draw a card when he comes into play. It's an auto ability. Very strong. Any card that can replace himself in this game is extremely powerful. Boo is another good example of a card that does this and just sees almost unlimited play. Very strong ability, I'm sorry. The next ability allows you to take 2 of your energy, any color, and switch it to active mode when you play this card. Now, this is an unbelievable ability that essentially makes this card a pseudo 3-drop. So essentially, you know, you're only really paying 3 energy to do this ability. Now, something to remember about this card is it pairs very well with the Starter Goku, which kind of created the green-blue Starter Goku deck, which just, you know, allows that deck to put out tons of threats. Now, this energy activation ability might not seem like it's that big of a deal for maybe newer players, or, you know, maybe you're like, oh, it's just 2 energy, but really it is a big deal because you can, you know, pair that with Senzu Bean, you can pair that with, you know, again, Starter Goku's ability, and just really chain out threats. And since he's replacing himself when he comes out, if your opponent intends to just kill him the next turn, you're still up a card. You know, you didn't really lose anything. You got, you know, energy activation out of it. Sometimes you get 2 threats out of it, plus a card. It's just really, there's no time where you wouldn't really play this card. Now, the only threat for this card, I've seen a lot of people talk about, and I want to kind of talk really briefly about this, is people say, well, you can use Cold Bloodlust against it. But again, guys, just saying that you can use Cold Bloodlust against a card doesn't make it a bad card. It doesn't make its effect any less powerful. You know, first of all, not every deck runs Cold Bloodlust. Second of all, Cold Bloodlust hits every card, right? And so that's more of a, you know, a situation where Cold Bloodlust is good and not a situation where this card is bad. And I just really want to kind of drive that home with these cards, is just because they can be Cold Bloodlusted doesn't make them bad or make them less good. But it's good that people are, you know, I guess, finding that line of play. Now, the last thing I'll talk about Super Saiyan Gotenks is that he's very splashable. For only 2 green, he can really be put in almost any deck, and he's very easy to get to that threshold, right? I think maybe this card probably should have cost 3 green and make him a little bit more like hard to splash into other decks. But I think even at 3 green, he could have still been easy splashable. So maybe it's a moot point, but I think that he is a little too splashable. And I think as long as this card is in standard play, or, you know, is available for us to play, he will be a threat that you should expect. And that, you know, again, guys, something else to remember about this card, that last thing I'll say about this card, that I, you know, before I keep rambling about it, is that, you know, playing a card for 5, you know, that essentially readies to your mana, so it's essentially a pseudo 3, in this game is a very big deal, because it allows you to essentially play him out and protect him, right? And so you can play him out and ready a yellow, so you can Cold Bloodlust their Beerus so he doesn't die. You can play him out and ready a blue, so you have a counter so they can't attack him whenever, you know, whenever he's attacked or whatever. You know, so again, don't just see that untapping as a way to, you know, play out more threats. You know, it's also a way for him to protect himself. And in this game, that is extremely powerful, because a lot of our, you know, the kind of the subtle mini game of this game is keeping your threats alive on the field, and Super Saiyan Gotenks gives you a way to do that. Okay, guys, so I'm going to go into the exit here. And again, guys, thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot. You know, I can't explain enough to you guys how much the support, you know, you guys have given me. It's overwhelming. I mean, honestly, you know, I have a really big announcement to make, you know, probably, you know, the first week of November, hopefully, you know, maybe a little sooner than that. You know, I have some really cool ideas to give back to you guys for being so supportive. It just means so much. The last thing I'll say, guys, is I will have the spoiler videos out tomorrow. I am so sorry for the delay. I've said it in all my videos. I'll say it again. You know, I've really got overwhelmed this weekend with the delay of the spoilers, plus I had family visiting, plus tournaments I attended. I just got really far behind. So I really apologize for that. I hate letting you guys down. I'm really sorry. But I promise I'll have, I think right now it's like 5 videos or so that I'll have out tomorrow on Wednesday. Also, we'll be doing the podcast on Wednesday as well at 10 o'clock at night Eastern time, so you can tune in Twitch and watch us for that. And again, guys, if you have any questions, any comments, anything that I maybe messed up in this list, let me know. I love hearing from you guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.